Kim Tae-ho stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. The room was huge. It could hold 10,000 people from different worlds. Today it was full. Every seat was taken. The noise was loud as different aliens talked and argued. Kim was the human ambassador. He had been doing this job for 20 years. His black suit was neat and clean. His face showed no emotion, but inside his heart was heavy. Today was different from all the other days. Today would be the last time he spoke for humanity in this place. The other humans sat behind him. Park Soo-jin was his helper. She was young and still believed they could fix things. Her hands shook as she held her papers. Next to her sat Dr. Lee Min-ho. He was old and wise. He knew what was coming. His face was sad but not surprised. The Althari were the ones who hated humans the most. They looked like tall, thin people but with blue skin and 4 arms. Their leader, Yethmorian, stood at the front of the room. He was the one who would count the votes today. "We are here to vote on the Human Limitation Act," Yethmorian said. His voice was cold and mean. "This law will keep humans in only 3 star systems. They cannot have more than 10 billion people in all their worlds combined." Kim had heard these words before in practice sessions, but hearing them now, in front of everyone, made them sound worse. 3 star systems. 10 billion people. Humans lived on 47 worlds now. They had 12 billion people. This law would force them to give up most of everything they had built. The Velkari were also against humans. They looked like large insects with shiny green shells. Their leader, Zixkoran, stood up to speak. "Humans grow too fast," he said in his buzzing voice. "They take jobs from other species. They build too many things. We must stop them before they take over everything." Many other aliens nodded their heads. The Zenthan looked like gray cats but were as big as humans. The Corvin had tentacles instead of arms. The Thresh were like living rocks. All of them agreed that humans were dangerous. Kim wanted to laugh, but it would not be right. Dangerous? Humans had fought in every war to protect these same aliens. Human soldiers died for worlds they had never seen, for people who did not even like them. Human doctors saved alien lives every day. Human engineers built the machines that kept their worlds running, but none of that mattered now. The vote was not about what humans had done. It was about fear. These aliens were afraid of humans because humans were good at everything they tried to do. Park Soo-jin leaned close to Kim. "Sir, we should say something," she whispered. "We should remind them of all the good things we have done." Kim shook his head slowly. "It will not help," he said quietly. "They have already made up their minds." Dr. Lee Min-ho nodded. He had been studying alien behavior for 30 years. "Fear is stronger than facts," he said. "They see how fast we learn, how well we adapt, and it scares them." The debate went on for hours. One by one, different aliens stood up to speak. Most of them said bad things about humans. They called humans aggressive and dangerous and too ambitious. A few aliens spoke for humans, but their voices were quiet and few. The Nixari ambassador, a being made of pure energy, tried to defend humans. "Humans have built 60% of our space stations," she said. "They have saved millions of lives in the medical research they share with us." But the Althari leader cut her off. "That is exactly the problem," Yethmorian said. "They do too much. They make other species look weak. This must stop." Kim felt tired. These were the same arguments they had been hearing for years. It started small. First, some aliens complained that human companies were too successful. Then they said human colonies grew too fast. Now they wanted to put humans in a cage and throw away the key. The worst part was that humans had seen this coming. For the last 50 years, smart humans had been making secret plans. They called it Project Silent Dawn. Kim was one of the few who knew about it. If this vote went badly, all humans would leave the galaxy together. They would go so far away that no one could ever find them again. Kim hoped they would not have to use those plans. He still believed that reason could win. He still thought that good deeds mattered. He was wrong. "The time for voting has come," Yethmorian announced. His 4 arms moved as he prepared the voting system. All in favor of the human limitation. Act, cast your votes now. The great screen at the front of the room lit up. Numbers began to appear. Kim watched as more and more aliens voted yes. The number grew higher and higher. Park Soo-jin gasped. 847 votes. She said. Her voice was full of shock. How many voted no? Dr. Lee Min-ho asked, though he probably already knew the answer would be bad. 23, Kim said. His voice was flat and empty. And abstentions? 12. Out of 882 votes, only 23 aliens had voted to protect humans. Even their friends had abandoned them. The room erupted in cheers from the Althari section. The Velkari were clicking their claws together in celebration. Many other species were making their own happy sounds. Kim stood up slowly. He looked around the room one last time. These were the same aliens that human soldiers had died protecting. These were the same aliens whose children human doctors had saved. These were the same aliens whose worlds human engineers had helped build. Park Soo-jin tugged at his sleeve. Ambassador, we need to file an appeal, she said quickly. We can challenge this in the council courts. We can organize protests. We can... Kim raised his hand to stop her. There was no point in fighting anymore. The message was clear. Humans were not wanted here. He picked up his papers and put them in his case. Then he did something that surprised everyone in the room. He bowed. It was a deep, formal bow like people did in old Korea on Earth. He held it for 10 seconds. The room became quiet. Nobody understood what the bow meant, but they could feel that it was important. Kim straightened up and walked toward the exit. The other humans followed him. Their footsteps echoed in the silent room. Nobody said anything as they left. Outside the council hall, Park Soo-jin finally spoke. What do we do now, sir? Kim looked up at the artificial sky of the council station. Somewhere out there, human families were living normal lives. Children were going to school. Parents were working honest jobs. They had no idea that their entire world was about to change. We go home, Kim said simply. And then, Kim pulled out his communicator. He typed in a code that he had memorized years ago but hoped he would never have to use. The message was short. Project Silent Dawn, execute immediately. He sent the message to every human colony, every human ship, every human family in the Hue galaxy. Within hours, 12 billion humans would know that it was time to leave. They had given the galaxy 300 years of service. They had shared their technology, their knowledge, and their blood. In return, they got fear, hatred, and rejection. It was time for humans to find a new home. Somewhere far away from the aliens who could not see their worth. Somewhere they could build something better. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humans would make theirs. Dr. Lee Min-ho stood in the control room of New Seoul Station. The station was huge. It was home to 2 million humans. It had shops, schools, hospitals, and parks. It was like a small city floating in space. But now it was almost empty. Through the big windows, Lee could see human ships leaving every few minutes. Some were small family ships. Others were giant cargo vessels carrying entire factories. All of them were heading to the same place, the meeting point in deep space where humanity would gather before leaving the galaxy forever. Lee had been the director of human colonial affairs for 15 years. His job was to make sure human colonies were safe and happy. Now his job was to make sure they all disappeared without leaving anything useful behind. His assistant, Choi Hye-jin, walked up to him with a tablet. Sir, the last families are boarding. The transport ships now, she said. We can start the final shutdown in 2 hours. Lee nodded. Around him, human workers were busy removing everything valuable from the station. They took apart computers, machinery, and scientific equipment. Anything that could be useful was being loaded onto ships. Anything that could not be moved was being destroyed. This was happening all across the galaxy. On 47 human worlds, the same scene was playing out. 12 billion humans were packing up their entire civilization and taking it with them. The other aliens had no idea how big this task was. Moving 12 billion people is not easy, but humans had been planning for this day for 50 years. Every human family knew where to go and what to do. Every human ship had a role to play. Captain Han Do-yun was loading his cargo ship, the Wandering Phoenix. He had spent 20 years flying cargo routes between human worlds. His ship was not pretty, but it was strong and reliable. Today, it was carrying something very special: quantum processors from the Proxima Industrial Complex. These processors were the most advanced computers in the galaxy. Humans had invented them 30 years ago. Every alien civilization used them now. Their entire communication network depended on them. But what the aliens did not know was that these processors needed special maintenance codes to keep working. Codes that only humans knew. "Be careful with those containers," Han told his crew. Each one of those processors cost more than most planets. His engineer, Park Jin-ho, wiped sweat from his face. "Captain, why are we taking these? Could we not sell them and make a lot of money?" Han shook his head. "Money from who? We are leaving this galaxy forever. Besides, when these processors start failing in a few months, the aliens will understand what they lost." Park looked confused. "Failing? But these are the newest models." "New models still need maintenance," Han explained. "The maintenance codes are in human databases. When we take those databases with us, the processors will slowly stop working." This was happening everywhere. Humans had built most of the important technology in the galaxy, but they had been very careful never to share all their secrets. Every blueprint filed with the Council was missing important parts. Every instruction manual left out key steps. The aliens had the technology, but they did not really understand how it worked. On the planet Kepler Prime, engineer Choi Hee-jin was shutting down the fusion reactors that powered half the star system. These reactors had been running perfectly for 60 years. They provided clean, safe energy to billions of aliens living on nearby worlds. "Are you sure about this?" asked her assistant, Yang Soo-young. "When these reactors shut down, millions of people will lose power." Hee-jin's face was sad but determined. "They voted to limit us to 3 star systems," she said. "That means we have to leave 39 systems. These reactors are in human space, so they come with us. But we cannot move fusion reactors." "No, but we can take the control systems. Without the control computers, these reactors will shut down safely in about 6 months. The aliens will have time to find other power sources." Yang looked worried. "What if they cannot find other power sources?" "In time? Then they will learn to appreciate what they had," Hee-jin said firmly. The same thing was happening with space stations, communication networks, defensive systems, and trade routes. For 300 years, humans had quietly become the backbone of galactic civilization. They had built the roads, maintained the bridges, and kept the lights on. Now they were taking it all away. Trade Commissioner Lee Jae-won was working from his office aboard the colony ship New Horizon. His job was to cancel every trade agreement between humans and other species. There were thousands of these agreements. Some were hundreds of years old. "Cancel the rare earth mining contract with the Velkari," he told his computer. "Cancel the exotic matter supply deal with the Zenthan Republic. Cancel the quantum crystal growing partnership with the Corvin Federation." Each cancellation sent shockwaves through the galactic economy. Humans had been the main suppliers of materials that other species had become completely dependent on. Rare earth elements for electronics, exotic matter for faster-than-light travel, quantum crystals for energy storage. The aliens had thought they were buying these things from humans. What they did not understand was that humans were not just suppliers. They were the only ones who knew how to make these things efficiently and safely. Prime Merchant Keth Nolar of the Velkari Trade Union was the first to realize how bad things were getting. He was in his office when the first price reports came in. "Sir," his assistant said nervously, "the price of rare earth elements just went up 400%. "What? That is impossible. Check the numbers again." "I checked 3 times, sir. The human mining operations have all stopped. Their automated systems are shutting down. The supply has dropped to almost zero overnight. Keth Nolar felt sick. The Velkari economy depended on those rare earth elements. They used them in everything from computers to spacecraft engines. Without them, their entire industrial base would collapse within months. He tried to call the human trade offices but got only automated messages. This facility is permanently closed. All contracts have been terminated. Do not attempt to contact us again. Similar scenes were happening across the galaxy. The Zenthan Republic discovered that their faster-than-light ships could not refuel because the exotic matter refineries had vanished. The Corvin Federation found that their power grids were failing because the quantum crystal farms had been abandoned, but the worst was yet to come. Archivist Song Yu-jin was working in the deepest archives of the human data networks. Her job was to erase all traces of human knowledge from galactic databases. Delete star charts showing human colony locations, she commanded her computer. Delete trade route maps through human space. Delete diplomatic contact information for all human governments. This was the final insult. Not only were humans leaving, they were making sure no one could follow them. Every map showing where humans lived was being erased. Every trade route that passed through human space was being removed from navigation systems. Captain Park Kyung-ho of the Human Defense Fleet was leading the final phase of the withdrawal. His job was to destroy everything humans could not take with them. Target the orbital defense platforms around Kepler Prime, he ordered his weapons officer. Fire. Bright beams of energy reached out from his ship. The massive defense platforms that had protected the Kepler system for 2 centuries exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Sir, are we sure about this? His weapons officer asked. Those platforms protect 3 billion civilians. Those civilians voted to cage us like animals, Park replied coldly. Let them protect themselves. One by one, human-built defenses across the galaxy were being destroyed. Early warning networks that detected enemy fleets went dark. Automated repair stations that fixed damaged ships shut down. Communication relays that allowed instant galaxy-wide messages stopped working. The aliens still did not understand what was happening. They thought humans were having a tantrum and would come back soon. The Althari leader, Yeth Morian, made public speeches about how the galaxy was better off without human interference. But some aliens were starting to worry. The Nexari ambassador sent desperate messages to human leaders. Please reconsider. We can negotiate. We can change the law. The messages were returned undelivered. The human embassy buildings were empty. The human trade offices were closed. The human military bases were abandoned. Dr. Lee Min-ho took one last look around New Seoul Station. The corridors that had been full of life and laughter were now dark and quiet. The shops were empty. The schools were closed. The parks had no children playing in them. It is time, sir, Choi Hae-jin said softly. Lee nodded and pressed the final button. The station's main computer began its shutdown sequence. In 60 days, all the automated systems would stop working. The station would become a dead hulk floating in space. He walked to his personal ship with Hae-jin and the last few humans on the station. As they flew away, Lee watched the station shrink behind them until it was just another tiny light among the stars. Will we ever come back? Hae-jin asked. Lee was quiet for a long time. Finally, he shook his head. No, he said. This galaxy made its choice. Now we will make our own future, somewhere far away, where no one can find us. Behind them, the lights of New Seoul Station flickered and went out forever. Councillor Vash Takari of the Zenthan Republic stood before the emergency assembly. His gray fur was messy and his cat-like ears were flat against his head. He looked tired and worried. 6 months ago, he had been happy about the human vote. Now, he wished he could take it back. Fellow councillors, he began, his voice shaking slightly, we have a serious problem. The quantum relay network is breaking down. The assembly hall was only half full now. Many species had stopped sending representatives because their governments were too busy dealing with crises at home. The Althari still came, but they looked less proud than before. The Velkari sent only junior officials because their senior leaders were trying to save their economy. How serious is this breakdown? Asked the Thresh delegate. The rock-like being's voice rumbled like distant thunder. Vashtakari looked at his notes. The numbers were worse every day. We estimate complete network failure within 18 months. Our best technicians cannot fix the problems. The systems are too complex. The quantum relay network was how the galaxy stayed connected. It allowed instant communication across thousands of light years. Without it, sending a message from one star system to another would take months or years. The network had worked perfectly for 200 years. Now it was dying. What the counselors did not understand was why it was dying. The truth was simple but terrible. Humans had built most of the network. The blueprints filed with the council showed how to make the basic parts, but they did not explain how to maintain the whole system. The maintenance codes were stored in human databases that no longer existed. The repair procedures were in human manuals that had been taken away. The diagnostic tools needed human operators who were gone forever. Admiral Crix Volan of the Combined Fleet paced in his private office. He was a Corvan, with 6 tentacle arms, and skin like dark leather. For 30 years he had commanded the greatest military force in the galaxy. Now his fleets were losing battles against enemies they used to defeat easily. His aide, a young Corvan named Set Volan, entered with the latest reports. Sir, we lost another fleet in the Outer Rim. The rogue syndicate destroyed 12 ships before we could retreat. Crix Volan's tentacles curled in frustration. The rogue syndicate? Those pirates should not be able to hurt a single one of our ships. What went wrong? The fleet commander says the tactical computers failed to predict enemy movements. The strategy programs gave wrong advice. The battle plans fell apart within minutes. The admiral knew what the real problem was, but he did not want to say it out loud. For 2 centuries, human tactical advisors had been quietly guiding every major military operation. Humans had an unusual ability to think like their enemies and predict their actions. They called it strategic intuition, but nobody understood how it really worked. Now those human advisors were gone. The computer programs they had written were breaking down without human maintenance. The strategies they had developed were failing without human insight to adapt them to new situations. How many more fleets have we lost this month? Crix Volan asked, though he did not really want to know the answer. 7, sir, and recruitment is down 70%. Nobody wants to join a military that keeps losing. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, Prime merchant Keth Nolar watched his empire collapse. The Velkari Trade Union had been the richest organization in the galaxy. Now they were running out of money fast. Show me the commodity prices again, he told his assistant, though looking at them made him feel sick. Rare earth elements are up 600%, sir. Exotic matter is up 800%. Quantum crystals are up 900%. And these are the prices when you can find them at all. Most suppliers have nothing to sell. Keth Nolar rubbed his compound eyes with his claws. The numbers were impossible. His entire business model had depended on buying raw materials cheaply from human suppliers and selling finished products to other species. Now there were no human suppliers, and the materials cost more than the finished products. What about our backup suppliers? The mining operations on Keltar? The refineries in the Jorth system? They cannot match human production, sir. The Keltar mines produce 1/10 as much and the quality is poor. The Jorth refineries keep having accidents. 3 of them exploded last month trying to make exotic matter. The truth was that other species had tried to copy human industrial methods for decades, but they never got the same results. Humans had a gift for making complex processes look easy. They could mine rare minerals from impossible locations, refine dangerous materials safely, and grow quantum crystals faster than anyone else. Without humans, the galactic economy was reverting to methods that had not been used in 300 years. Methods that were slower, more expensive, and much more dangerous. Song Yu-jin finished her work in the Human Data Archives. She had been the chief archivist for human space exploration. Her job had been to catalog every star system, every trade route, every safe passage through dangerous space. Now her job was to erase all of that knowledge, delete navigation charts. For the Sagittarius arm, she commanded her computer. Delete hazard warnings for the Magellan Nebula. Delete safe passage coordinates through the dark matter fields. Each deletion made the galaxy a more dangerous place. Human explorers had spent centuries mapping safe routes through deadly regions of space. They had marked black holes, neutron stars, gravity anomalies, and radiation fields. They had found paths through nebulae and asteroid fields that other ships could follow safely. Now all of that knowledge was disappearing. Trade ships that had followed the same routes for decades were getting lost. Some hit gravity fields and were torn apart. Others flew into radiation storms and died slowly. A few simply vanished, probably destroyed by hazards that human charts had warned about for generations. The worst part was that the other species had never bothered to make their own charts. They had always relied on human navigation data. For 3 centuries, humans had been the galaxy's explorers and pathfinders. Now the galaxy was becoming unmappable. Back on the Council world, emergency speaker Teth Morian called another crisis meeting. He had replaced the old speaker after angry mobs had killed him on his homeworld. The new speaker was trying to hold the Council together, but it was getting harder every day. "We must face the truth," he announced to the half-empty assembly. "The human departure has caused more damage than we expected." The remaining delegates shifted uncomfortably. Many of them had voted for the Human Limitation Act. Now they were seeing the results of their decision. "The Althari worlds are experiencing power failures," Teth Morian continued. "The Velkari economy has collapsed. Our military is losing battles to pirates. Our communication network is failing. Trade routes are becoming impassable." An Althari delegate stood up angrily. "This is not our fault. The humans are sabotaging us. They are destroying things out of spite." "Are they?" Teth Morian asked quietly. "Or are we just discovering how much we depended on them?" The question hung in the air like a bad smell. Nobody wanted to answer it because they all knew the truth. Humans had not sabotaged anything. They had simply taken their knowledge and skills with them when they left. The galaxy was falling apart because it had been held together by human work, human innovation, and human dedication. Dr. Choi Min-ji observed the crisis from the bridge of the human research vessel Discovery. She had been the galaxy's leading expert on alien biology. She had saved millions of alien lives by developing new medicines and treatments. Now she watched as disease outbreaks spread across multiple worlds. "The Zenthan plague is getting worse," her assistant reported. "Death toll is approaching 1 million. The Althari fungal infection has spread to 6 worlds. The Corvin genetic disorder is affecting their entire military." Minji nodded sadly. All of these problems had easy solutions, if you knew what humans knew. The medicines existed in human databases that were no longer available. The treatments required equipment that only humans knew how to build. The vaccines needed ingredients that only human labs could produce safely. "Should we help them?" her assistant asked. "We could send the cure formulas anonymously." Minji shook her head. The Council made its decision. They voted to limit us to 3 systems and 10 billion people. They rejected our help and our presence. We must respect their choice. Navigation Officer Yang Su-young completed the final phase of Project Silent Dawn. She had erased the last traces of human presence from galactic databases. Every star chart showing human worlds was gone. Every trade route through human space was deleted. Every diplomatic contact was removed. "It is done," she reported to her captain. "No record of our current location exists in any galactic database. The search fleets will not be able to find us." The search fleets were the final proof of how desperate the aliens had become. Species that had celebrated human departure were now spending fortunes trying to find them. They sent expeditions to every known human world, but found only empty buildings and silent machines. Some aliens still believed humans would come back. They thought this was just a negotiating tactic. They expected humans to return with demands for better treatment. But others were starting to understand the truth. Humans were not coming back, ever. 1 year after the humans left, the galaxy was in chaos. Emergency Council Speaker Teth Morian sat alone in his office, staring at reports that got worse every day. The Great Assembly Hall was almost empty now. Most species could not afford to send representatives anymore. Their worlds were too busy trying to survive. Tethmorian picked up the latest report from the communication department. The quantum relay network had finally died completely. The last working station had shut down 3 days ago. For the first time in 2 centuries, the galaxy could not talk to itself. "Sir," his aide said quietly from the doorway. "The Althari, Prime Minister, is here to see you. Send him in." Prime Minister Zeth Korian entered the office. He looked nothing like the proud leader who had celebrated human departure a year ago. His blue skin was pale and his forearms shook with exhaustion. His people were dying and he was desperate. "Speaker Tethmorian," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "My worlds are going dark. The fusion reactors built by humans are shutting down one by one. We have no power for our cities, no heat for our homes. My people are freezing." Tethmorian nodded sadly. "How many reactors are still working?" 3 out of 50. "We estimate they will all be dead within 2 months. 8 billion of my people live on those worlds. Without power, they will die." "What about backup power sources?" Zeth Korian laughed bitterly. "We tried to build our own reactors. 5 of them exploded during testing. 60,000 engineers died. The human designs look simple, but we cannot make them work." This was happening everywhere. The Althari were not stupid. They were advanced, intelligent people. But human technology was deceptively complex. It looked easy from the outside, but every component depended on dozens of other components in ways that were not obvious. Fleet Admiral Park Kyung-ho commanded humanity's final military operation from deep space. His job was to destroy every piece of human-built infrastructure that could not be taken away. The great orbital defense platforms, the early warning networks, the automated repair stations, all of it had to go. "Target the sensor array in the Vega system," he ordered his weapons officer. "Fire." The massive sensor station exploded in a brilliant flash. It had been watching for enemy fleets for over a century. Now the Vega system was blind and defenseless. "Sir," his weapons officer said hesitantly, "that station protected 4 billion civilians. Without it, raiders could attack them and they would never see it coming." Park's face showed no emotion. "Those 4 billion civilians voted to put us in a cage. Let them learn to protect themselves." The destruction was systematic and complete. Every human-built defense system was being eliminated. The galaxy had depended on these defenses for so long that most species had stopped maintaining their own military forces. Dr. Choi Min-ji watched from the research vessel Discovery as another medical crisis unfolded. The Corvin worlds were being devastated by a genetic disorder that should have been easy to treat. "How many dead now?" she asked her assistant. 2 million and climbing. The disorder affects their immune systems. Without treatment, it is fatal within weeks. Min-ji had developed the cure for this disorder 20 years ago. It was in her personal database along with thousands of other medical breakthroughs. But the Corvin did not have access to that database anymore. They were watching their people die from a disease that humans could cure with a simple injection. "We could send them the formula," her assistant suggested. "Just anonymously. They would never know it came from us." "No," Min-ji said firmly. "The council voted to remove us from their galaxy. That means they do not want our help. We must respect their decision." Similar scenes were playing out across human space. Every human ship had orders to destroy or remove anything that could be useful to the aliens. It was not cruelty. It was necessity. If humans were leaving forever, they could not leave behind gifts for people who had rejected them. Navigation Officer Yang Soo-young coordinated the final data purge from her command center. Her screens showed the systematic destruction of 3 centuries of human knowledge. "Delete the medical databases," she ordered. "Delete the engineering specifications. Delete the agricultural guides. Delete the terraforming procedures." Each deletion made the galaxy a little more helpless. Humans had accumulated vast amounts of practical knowledge about how to live in space, how to build on alien worlds, how to grow food in hostile environments, how to treat diseases that affected multiple species. Now all of that knowledge was disappearing. Colony worlds that had thrived with human help were failing. Terraforming projects that had taken decades were reverting to barren wastelands. Medical centers that had saved millions were closing because they could not get the supplies and equipment they needed. Prime merchant Keth Nolar of the Velkari Trade Union stood in his empty warehouse. A year ago, this building had been full of rare materials and finished goods. Traders from across the galaxy had come here to buy things they needed. Now the shelves were bare, and the building was quiet. "Sir," his assistant said, "the creditors are here again." Keth Nolar sighed. The Velkari had borrowed money to buy human goods at reasonable prices, then sold them for profits. It had worked perfectly for decades. Now they owed billions and had nothing to sell. "Tell them I will pay them when I can," he said wearily. "They say they want payment now or they will take the building. Let them take it. It is worthless anyway." The galactic economy was in free fall. Without human suppliers, the prices of basics materials had risen so high that most species could not afford them. Without human buyers, there was no market for luxury goods. Without human shipping, it cost more to transport goods than the goods were worth. Entire industries were shutting down. Millions of aliens were losing their jobs. Governments that had been rich a year ago were now bankrupt. But the worst crisis was yet to come. On the bridge of his flagship, General Kim Woo-jin received intelligence reports from automated probes left behind in Council space. The probes were hidden and would keep sending information for years. "What they showed was worse than humanity's worst predictions, sir," his intelligence officer reported. "The rogue syndicate has taken control of the Outer Rim. The Predator clans are raiding the core worlds. The Void Cult has destroyed 6 star systems." Kim nodded grimly. For centuries, the combined fleet had kept these threats under control. Human tactical advisors had planned every major operation. Human engineers had maintained the ships. Human strategists had outthought every enemy. Now the combined fleet was a shadow of its former self. They had lost 50% of their ships in the last year. The remaining ships were breaking down because they could not get spare parts. The officers had no idea how to fight without human guidance. "How many civilian casualties this month?" Kim asked. "Estimated 40 million, sir. The number is rising every day." The galaxy was becoming a dangerous place. Pirates who had been afraid to attack merchant ships were now raiding entire planets. Warlords who had been contained to the edges of civilized space were conquering whole sectors. Ancient enemies who had been held in check were resuming old conflicts. Captain Park Jin-ho oversaw the destruction of the last human industrial facility in the galaxy. The automated factory on Kepler Prime had produced quantum processors for 300 years. Now it was being systematically dismantled. "Set the charges on the main production line," he ordered his demolition team. "Make sure nothing useful survives." The explosions lit up the night sky. The factory that had supplied quantum processors to the entire galaxy was reduced to twisted metal and broken concrete. Without those processors, the aliens would have to build their own. But they did not know how. "Sir," his engineer asked, "why not just shut down the factory? Why destroy it?" "Because they might figure out how to restart it," Park explained. "This way, they have to build everything from scratch. It will take them decades to reach the level of production we had." The destruction was not random. Every target was chosen carefully. Humans were making sure that the aliens could not simply take over human facilities and continue as if nothing had happened. If the galaxy wanted to function without humans, it would have to learn how to build everything humans had built. Back on the Council world, Tethmorian received a desperate message from the Nixari Collective. The energy beings were some of the most advanced species in the galaxy, but even they were struggling. "Speaker," the message began. "Our computational networks are failing. The quantum processors that run our entire civilization are breaking down. We estimate complete system failure within 6 months. Our people will lose the ability to maintain coherent consciousness. We are facing extinction." Tethmorian put down the message and rubbed his tired eyes. The Nixari were pure energy, beings who existed as patterns in quantum computer networks. Without those computers, they would simply fade away and die. Similar messages were coming from across the galaxy. The Thresh reported that their mining operations were collapsing. The Corvin said their military was mutinying. The Zenthan claimed. Their government was being overthrown by angry mobs. Every crisis had the same cause: the absence of human knowledge, human skills, and human support. The galaxy had become so dependent on humans that it could not function without them. 2 years after humanity's departure, Counselor Vash Takari walked alone through the empty halls of the Galactic Council building. His footsteps echoed in the silence. The great assembly chamber that once held thousands of delegates now housed only memories and dust. Most species had stopped sending representatives months ago. Their governments had collapsed or were too busy fighting for survival to care about politics. The few remaining council members met in a small room that had once been a storage closet. Vash Takari stopped before the memorial wall where the names of fallen heroes were carved in stone. Most of the names were human. Soldiers who had died, protecting alien worlds. Scientists who had sacrificed their lives to save alien civilizations. Engineers who had given everything to build a better galaxy. He had voted for the Human Limitation Act. He had believed humans were dangerous and needed to be controlled. Now he understood the truth. Humans had not been the galaxy's greatest threat. They had been its greatest treasure. On the former human world of Kepler Prime, janitor Set Corian cleaned the abandoned government buildings. He was one of the few Althari left on the planet. Most had fled when the power grid failed and the cities went dark. Set had been a low-level bureaucrat before the collapse. Now he was paid by the emergency government to keep the empty buildings from falling apart completely. It was meaningless work, but it gave him something to do while the world died around him. Through broken windows, he could see the ruins of what had once been a thriving city. The skyscrapers were dark and empty. The streets were full of debris. Wild plants were already growing through cracks in the pavement. Another great civilization brought low by its own arrogance, he muttered to himself as he swept the floor of the abandoned council chamber. General Kim Woo-jin stood on the bridge of his flagship in the depths of unknown space. Behind him stretched humanity's new fleet, ships built with technology beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. They had spent 2 years learning from their mistakes and improving on everything they had left behind. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported. "The latest probe data is in. The situation in council space continues to deteriorate." Kim looked at the holographic display showing the former territories of the Galactic Council. Red zones marked areas where central government had collapsed. Black zones showed regions that had been completely abandoned. Green zones indicated places where some form of civilization still existed. There was very little green left. "Casualty estimates?" Kim asked. "Total death toll is approaching 2 billion, most from starvation, disease, and civil wars. The Althari have lost 60% of their population. The Velkari trade union has completely collapsed. The Corvin Federation split into 17 warring factions." Kim felt no satisfaction at these numbers. 2 billion dead was a tragedy beyond imagination. But it was a tragedy the galaxy had brought upon itself. "Any attempts to contact us?" "Constant attempts, sir. Every surviving government has sent search fleets looking for us. They broadcast messages on all frequencies begging for help. Some are offering complete surrender if we will just come back." Kim nodded. The search fleets were pathetic things. Old ships held together with spare parts, crewed by desperate aliens who had no idea where to look. They searched every known human world and found only empty ruins. They sent messages to every frequency. Humans had ever used and received only silence. Admiral Lee Soo-jin commanded humanity's new home system from the bridge of her command station. The station orbited a planet so far beyond the galactic rim that it could not be detected by any known scanning technology. Around her, the greatest construction project in human history was taking shape. Orbital cities larger than anything they had built in council space. Shipyards producing vessels with capabilities that would have seemed like magic to their former alien masters. Research facilities pushing the boundaries of science and technology. "Admiral," her aide reported, "we have intercepted another desperate transmission from council space." "Play it." The voice that came through the speakers was broken and pleading. This is Emergency Council Speaker Teth Morian broadcasting on all frequencies. Humans, if you can hear this, please respond. We know we made terrible mistakes. We know we treated you badly. But people are dying. Billions of innocent people who had nothing to do with the vote. Please help us. We will give you anything. Complete autonomy. Full council membership with veto power. Entire sectors of space. Just please come back. Lee listened to the message with no expression on her face. She had heard dozens like it over the past year. The tone had changed from angry demands to desperate pleas, but the underlying assumption remained the same, that humans existed to serve alien needs. Any response, Admiral? Her aide asked. No response. Delete the message. The aide looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, with respect, billions of people are dying. Surely we could send some aid without revealing our location. Lee turned to face him directly. Lieutenant, how many humans died serving the galaxy over the past 3 centuries? I don't know, ma'am. The number is 200 million. 200 million humans who gave their lives protecting, building, and maintaining a civilization that ultimately rejected us. Did the aliens shed tears for those deaths? Did they beg us to save human lives? Or did they take our sacrifice for granted and demand even more? The lieutenant was quiet. The galaxy made its choice, Lee continued. They voted to cage us like dangerous animals. They celebrated our departure like a holiday. Now they are learning what their civilization is really worth without human blood, sweat, and genius holding it together. Ambassador Kim Tae-ho, now serving as humanity's first prime minister, reviewed the final intelligence reports from Council Space. The numbers were staggering. In just 2 years, galactic civilization had collapsed more completely than anyone had thought possible. The quantum communication network was dead. Faster-than-light travel had become so expensive that most species could no longer afford it. Trade between star systems had dropped to levels not seen in 1,000 years. Medical knowledge had regressed by centuries. Industrial production had fallen by 90%. Entire species were facing extinction. The Nexari could no longer maintain their quantum consciousness matrices. The Thresh had lost most of their mining worlds to equipment failures. The Xenthan were fighting a civil war that had already destroyed half their planets. Prime Minister, his assistant said softly, the public opinion polls are in. 67% of humans support sending humanitarian aid to prevent further deaths. Kim was not surprised. Humans were naturally compassionate people. Even after everything they had endured, most still felt sympathy for suffering aliens. And what does the other 33% say? He asked. They believe the aliens deserve whatever they get. Some want to conquer the galaxy while it is weak. Others want to make sure the aliens can never threaten us again. Kim understood both positions. The humanitarian impulse was noble and admirable. The hardline position was practical and strategic. But there was a third option that few had considered. What if we do nothing, he said. Sir? What if we simply let the galaxy sort itself out? We don't help them, but we don't hurt them either. We just ignore them. The assistant looked puzzled. But sir, if we do nothing, most of them will die. Yes, they will. But that is not our responsibility anymore. For 3 centuries, we made their survival our responsibility. We fought their wars, solved their problems, and built their civilization. In return, they voted to eliminate us. Kim stood and walked to the window overlooking humanity's new capital city. The buildings were beautiful in a way that council architecture had never been. They reflected human aesthetics, human values, human dreams. We are not gods, he said quietly. We are not responsible for the fate of species that have rejected us. If they want to survive, they will have to learn how to survive without us. If they cannot, then perhaps they deserve to fail. It was a harsh philosophy, but it was born from harsh experience. Humans had learned the hard way that gratitude was temporary, but resentment was eternal. No matter how much they gave, it was never enough. No matter how many lives they saved, they were still seen as a threat. Captain Park Jin-ho commanded one of the last human vessels in the galaxy. His mission was simple: monitor what remained of Council space and report on its condition. He was not to help, not to interfere, not to make contact. Just observe. What he observed was the final collapse of everything the galaxy had once been. The great trade routes were abandoned, the mighty fleets were broken and scattered, the proud civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia were reduced to squabbling tribes fighting over scraps. "Captain," his sensor officer reported, "we are receiving a transmission from the old council world." "Put it on screen." The image that appeared was heartbreaking. Teth Morian looked like he had aged decades in the past 2 years. His fur was gray and patchy. His eyes were hollow with exhaustion and despair. "Humans," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "We know you are out there somewhere. We know you are watching us. Please, we are sorry. We were wrong about everything. We were fools who threw away the greatest gift the galaxy had ever received." He paused, struggling to continue.